And we are here with Dov Baron, the leading authority on authentic leadership and leadership succession, or as he likes to call it, full Monty leadership. Dov, I'm so excited to have you on the show. Thanks for being here.
Great to be here. Thank you for having me on. I'm honored to be a guest on the Nick Knight Show. See, even listen to that, the Nick Knight Show. You know, I mean, I know it's profitability, but really it's the Nick Knight Show. You know, you have got the name for the host, mate. I mean, I don't know where you bought it from, but it's a good buy.
I like how you say it. I might have to hire you to be my next VO artist.
Exactly. Yeah.
That's cool. Well, hey, man, so, you know, I don't know if you even remember. We met about 5 years ago, and very briefly. At that time, you didn't know who I was, nor should you. We were just launching Revisit as a platform, and we were kind of reaching out to the internet marketing crowd. And so we went and attended a conference in Las Vegas with Frank Kern and Kevin Nations, and that's where I first met you, and that's where I first actually found out who you were and stuff. And you were a larger than life person at that event. It was obviously you were somebody to be reckoned with, and I said, all right, I got to check out who this guy is. And so then, ever since then, you know, I've been a fan and follower of your work, and you know, and now that I am sort of fitting the mold of the kind of people that you inspire. You know, I am supposedly some kind of leader of an organization. So, but anyway,
you're the host of the Nick Knight Show.
The Nick Knight Show, ladies and gentlemen. So anyway, so it's great to have you on the show, and I know there's tons of stuff we're going to learn from you today. But before we get into how you can help us, give us a little bit of an insight into how you got, just for those of you who don't know Dov's story, it's really interesting. He's actually one of Inc. magazine's top 100 leadership speakers that companies should hire. That's a big deal. Top 100. That means Inc. magazine, out of the entire world, you're in the top 100. That is fantastic. So
it was quite the honor.
And I remember a long time ago, we were having a chat, and you told me a little bit of your story, and there was like I remember a particular defining moment for you. You got injured or something, but I do want to like just kind of tell us your story. How did you get to be this guy that you are today?
Through many incarnations, meaning that it has been a process of reinvention and constant reinvention, and even though that wasn't from a marketing point of view, it was actually from a need and desperation point of view,
sure.
Particularly in the case you're talking about, which was in 1990, I had already lived here in North America for a few years. I'd moved here from Australia. That was not where I was originally from. I traveled a lot, lived in different countries. But I came here from Australia, had spoken in every major city of Australia, most of Canada, northern US, had all kinds of success, TV, radio, newspapers. And I knew I was successful because I had a big American car.
Nice.
I had an LTD. And for me, that was like, you know, when you're a kid, you personify success. Well, for me, because I was born in the UK, tiny little roads, tiny little cars. Every now and then I see these big American cars. Oh, that guy's made it. He's really there.
That's
and so
awesome.
I bought myself this car that didn't do miles to the gallon and gallons to the mile. It was a monster. So I was having all kinds of great success, and then in June 1990, came back to Vancouver. Was met by the person who ran my schedule. She told me she scheduled 3 days off for me for R&R. I was kind of pissed off about that because I didn't want something to block my flow, and I was a workaholic at the time. It was a minor detail, and so I took 3 days off, went away with a friend of mine, and we went up to a place called Whistler, which some of you may be familiar with. It's where the Winter Olympics were held a few years ago. Beautiful place, kind of this spectacular alpine village. And right by there, we spent the morning swimming in the lake and sunbathing. In the afternoon, right by there is a place called Brandywine Falls, this majestic falls. It's over 200 feet of glacial water that drops off the edge of a cliff. It's so stunning. So you're up the top and you can see that. We hiked down, and when we got to the bottom, at the mouth of the river, you can feel the spray that's coming off that waterfall. It's amazing. And I challenged my buddy, because I was an adrenaline junkie, to let's see if we can slip behind the waterfall. So you got to get past that spray and all that power. And we slid behind there, and we came out on the other side. I was beyond invigorated. I felt like nature had tattooed a big red S on my chest. It was,
right.
It was indestructible. There was nothing. And so I said to my mate, let's not hike, let's free climb. Now, free climbing, for those of you who don't know, is climbing without ropes. It's for the moderately insane, or majorly insane in my case. And at about halfway up, you may have, I'm sure you've had one of these moments, Nick, where you say something to someone and you go, that was solid. I gave that person some great stuff. And then it might take you an hour, might take you a week, might take you a year, and you go, shit, I should have listened to that advice.
Right.
It was really great advice for me. Well, in that moment, halfway up, I can hear him sort of moaning back then. I turned around and I said, you don't have to come this way. This is the hard way. Mm-hmm. I should have listened, not just to that for that moment, but that was how I was living my life. And I continued to climb, and at about 120 feet, which for those of you who want to understand that, it's about 12 stories. I reached for a rock that dislodged a bigger rock, bam, hit me in the face, knocked me unconscious, and sent me hurtling at maximum velocity to the boulders below, got smashed to pieces. I can tell you that the recovery was brutal. When I came around, it sounded like my head was underwater because my ears were full of blood. I tried to speak, that it was a taste of rusty metal in my mouth, which was actually blood. My jaw was shattered into pieces. I couldn't speak. As I said, the recovery was long, It was brutal, it was hard. And at that point, over the recovery period, just the first half of that recovery period, about 9 months, I kept being positive. I'm going to come back. I'm going to make it back. But it was horse shit. And it was in the second half that all changed, because I found myself on my living room floor, a puddle of mess. I mean, just emotionally, mentally, physically incapacitated, weeping and realizing there is no back. I can't go back. I could choose the status quo and say, well, I'm a victim and that's all there is to it. And the idea I was going to make a difference was a delusion of grandeur. Mm-hmm. And that was very appealing because it didn't mean I'd do anything. But then the other call was to get up and look at what really mattered, who was true to me. A lot of people I know who know me and I've worked with will say, I want to introduce you to this person, but you really scare them. And my response is, I don't scare anybody. They just know that when I look at them, I'll see them. What scares them is hearing the truth. They're scared of themselves, not of me. They've bought the package of who they are. Well, I'd done that. And that fall broke open that package and revealed me to me. And that meant I had to look at some shit I didn't want to particularly look at, some stuff that was not particularly pleasant. But that was the defining moment of transformation, of really understanding what authenticity was.
Wow. That is an incredible story. Now, so you were already, like you said, successful in business. You were doing stuff. You thought you were going to take a few days off. How many days did you end up taking off from your business?
Days? It was about 18 months before I sort of came back. But in fairness, about 5 months in, if you didn't know me, I looked fairly normal. If you did know me, I didn't look normal because I looked different. My face was changed. I mean, my face was completely shattered. I think I've had somewhere between 10 and 12 reconstructive surgeries.
Wow.
So, for instance, when I smile, my top lip doesn't move.
Oh, neither does mine, but that's just me.
Yeah, but yours does. You can see your teeth. Mine is sewn on.
Ah, wow.
Right? My lip is actually sewn on here, because my jaw was split into 4 pieces. My lips were split into pieces. Wow. This eye socket was gone. My nose was gone. This cheekbone was gone. So there was nothing left. So, it was a long time off. And then even when I came back, I wasn't really fully back, because it's, like I said, it's more than reinvention. It's, do you remember the book, The Road Less Traveled? Mm-hmm. M. Scott Peck, for me, one of the greatest books ever written. And Peck, for people who don't know, was a military psychiatrist. So that's about as rigid as you can get. And Peck wrote about, he said, a bad therapist, you go to a bad therapist and they'll fix the problem. A good therapist will tear down everything else. Khalil Gibran said, your pain is the breaking of the shell of your understanding. That's what my pain was. It tore down everything else and revealed me to me. And that's what's vital for all of us. And every one of us has falls. You have a fall, you have a horrible diagnosis, you go bankrupt, shit happens. But what most people do is they come back. They go, oh, I came back. I had a heart attack and I was working too many hours and I've decided I missed my kids and I'm going to change. And then 3 months later, they're doing the same stuff.
Yeah.
Because they didn't really get it. And so people have a series of falls rather than going, oh, this is for me to pay attention. A fall is to wake you up from something and to wake you up to something. Your job is to find out what that is, because that will give you the purpose of your life.
Right. Wow, this is a really incredible story. So now take us to that place. So you are now in recovery or at a place where you can resume business.
Yeah.
So that's the kind of quintessential story of that all of us have experienced at some point, where you kind of hit rock bottom and you got to start over. You've reinvented yourself. You've looked different. You know what I mean? All these things have completely transformed for you. So how do you start from that ground zero? What did you do to kind of catapult yourself up out of that?
Well, I don't think it was any catapult. I think it was more of a crawl.
Yeah. Okay.
It just started to crawl out of there. But what happened was, I'll tell you, I was definitely a one-man show. I did a video about this, that the best business advice I ever got was from Tony Robbins. I met Tony in end of '88 or early '89. Long story, nonetheless, at the end of I saw him live, and I waited so I could be the last person. And at the end, back in those days, you could get to Tony. And back in those days, he made $11 million, and it was a massive year. Now that would be like, oh my God, we're losing massive. But so I lined up and I made sure I was last. And Tony said, how was it for you today? And I said, amazing. And he says, how do you feel? Now I know I surprised him with the answer, because I said, pissed off. And he said, really? Why is that? I said, can I be really honest? He said, please do. I said, I'm at least as good as you. You made $11 million, and I'm standing here in a secondhand jacket. Mm-hmm. And he said to me, great advice. Who's on your team? I said, I don't play soccer anymore. Honestly, I was that naive. I didn't get it. And he said, no, who's on your team? I said, I don't understand. He said, the seats you sat in, did I put the chairs out? I go, probably not. He goes, the booklet you're working through, did I print that up? And I go, probably not. He goes, did I design the tickets? I go, probably not. And he said, that's right. My team members did all those things and a lot more. Who's on your team? Is the best thing you can do if you want to get to where I'm getting to, which I don't want to get to now. It's a different dream. But he said, get a team. It took me at least 10 years to understand that. It was the best piece of business advice I ever got. But the clarity is, it took me 10 years. Right? So that advice is really important. So it's not a catapult out. It's how quick can you let it in? Mm-hmm. And why don't we let it in quick? Because that's the question I get all the time. Well, why did it take you 10 years? Why does it take any of us so long? And the answer is resistance. Yeah. Resistance to, this is what I do, and this is right. How do I know? Because I've been doing it for 10 years. Well, how's it working for you? It's really not, but this is what I do. This is who I am. This is my identity. I'm the struggler. I get knocked down 8 times. I get up 9. Well, why don't you just stop getting fucking knocked down? How about that?